Hello everyone. In my CAD class today, when I was teaching drawing in SolidWorks, one of my students asked a couple of questions about some text fields here or some values that are automatically adjusted instead of we just type them manually, how to do that. And I decided to share the technique with you as well. So one of them was here. If you go and you want to add the diameter and depth of this hole, one of the things that I teach in the class is if you show the diameter of this hole here in this top view, then don't go ahead and show the depth of it on this front or right view. Why? Because you're showing the dimension on an invisible or hidden line, and that is not allowed in the standards for drawing. So either make a section view so these lines become solid and show it on them, or use a hole call out or add the depth here on this top view where you can see the hole, let's say, okay? And then we talked about how to make the depth here, right? So in this case, if you look at the depth is like 1.57. So instead of showing it here, I want to show it right next to this dimension. So I can go here and I can say, hey, go ahead and add the depth symbol here and then say 1.57, right? And now the question is, let me first have a break here. There we go. So the question is this: if I go ahead and modify the depth of this hole, would anything change here or modify the diameter, right? So let me just save it temporarily and go back to the part. And in the part, this one here, I go ahead and modify it, right? So let's go ahead here and change the diameter from 10, let's say, to 12. And the depth condition, instead of 40, I make it like 50, right? And these are, of course, in mils. Those dimensions were in inches, but we can go back and change everything to inches. So let me go back here. And as I said, I can make these guys in millimeters too. So now look what happens if I change this units to mils. Look, the phi immediately changed from 10 to 12, right? So before I did the update, this number was 10. And now it immediately changed to 12. But now look at that depth of 1.57. It stays as 1.57. Why? Because we typed it manually here, right? So this is not like these other ones, like this one, like this dimension of 12 that automatically changes. This one doesn't change. So he said, can I make this part along with these other parts that are symbols or numbers? Can I make this one also change? The answer is yes. How? Let's take a look here. So if instead of this one, I use the whole call out and I run it on this, look. Now I get this, and you see this one immediately shows 50. So what's the difference between these two? Look, if I click here, you see that instead of the number, you are using this guy here. HW-depth. So this one is the depth of the hole, and that is something that will read the number from the CAD file and the SolidWorks part file, and it is gonna update it right here. So if here I pick this number, right, and change that here to that condition, look. Now, would that work here? It does not. Why is that? How come? It's the same thing. It's the same kind of variable, right? In one command it works, in one command it doesn't. It is right. It doesn't. So that is the big difference between these two. So a single smart dimension command only will act on simple variables like this mod, diam, and dim, and so on. But if you give it these other variables, it is not going to be able to read them. But the whole callout has a list of several of these variables, and it's not just the diameter and depth. It has a lot more, and I'm going to show you those. And this one will go and read them from their text file that has all of this in it. that is the whole call out text, and it deciphers what numbers they are and get them updated. So this is what we call out format.txt. That is a text file, and it has a list of variables. So you can generate whole type, whether it's counterbore taps, so on. You can do the whole standard. You can do the fastener type, the fastener size. You see, counterbore depth, counterbore diameter, the depth for the counter drill, and so on. The tap drill diameter, tap drill depth, thread description, thread class. This is tolerance class actually. Thread depth and diameter symbol. So look, if I run it on this one, look here. If I run it on this, it has a lot more symbols. You can see them here, right? Look. You see, that is the tap drill diameter. That is the tap drill depth. This is the thread description, which is that M12 by 1.5. Hole depth, the whole thread depth, right? So there are lots of these symbols, and this whole callout command is capable of going to that file and basically reading those values one by one and updating them. But the standard diameter, the dimension, is not capable of doing that. So if it's for a hole and you want it to be adaptable, go ahead and use the whole callout. But this is not the only thing he asked. He asked that, hey, look here, in the title block, or frame and title block, you enter a mass for the part here, right? So if we go here and then say edit sheet format, and then say note, and then click here, right? So let's go ahead and click there. Now I can go ahead and read the mass of the other part. So let me show you. So that is what we typically do. We go to the part and then go to evaluate and then measure the mass, right? And you see that the mass is, for instance, this much. So we copy this here. We go back to that note, right, that we made here. And let me make another one. And then we paste it here, okay? So this way we have our mass here. But the problem is this. If I go back and modify the part a little bit and change the mass of it, so let's go here back and let's say just modify the material. So instead of aluminum, we make it out of copper, correct? So now clearly the mass is going to be different. Look now, the mass is a lot more. It's about 12 kilogram as opposed to 4 kilogram. So now if I do this and I go back to that part, would that get updated? Of course not. Why? Because it was just a manual text. So he said, could you update this one? And the answer is yes. How do we do that? Let me show you. So here we go back to edit sheet format, and then look, when I click on this one, instead of typing a number, what do? I use this guy here. That is called this one is called the link to property. So here I have to define a file property for that object, and then here I can link to it. Since I want the mass, when I click here, I need to make sure that it has the mass property here, right? So I need to have some mass here. And look what I did for this file. I made sure that the file has a mass property. So if you go back here, because by default your parts don't have a mass property, but look, when I went here, I created this mass property, right? So let me show you again here. So you go and say, hey, this is mass, and then you enter. Of course, in this case, it's not going to accept it because it's a duplicate, but I say mass number 1, right? And the variable is of type text, and here you pick the property that you want. Let's say mass, let's say density. Let's just do density for a difference. So let's say here I add another property called density, right? And you see these properties are populated in the file properties, and these are custom properties now. So when I go back in this text here, look, when I click on it, now I'm going to use this linker, and it should not come from the document that is the drawing. It should come from the model. and you go here and then you pick the mass. You see the density is also populated, and I okay that, right? There we go. You see, you got that number. And now if I go back and change my material back, let's say to aluminum again, you see that that number will be updated immediately again. So look here, I made it aluminum. I go back here and look, immediately change back. So if you want to have basically adaptable or adjustable fields like mass here for the note, you can do that. For if it's on a dimension line, it's better be a whole call out. Otherwise, you can put some notes and have the notes adjust this number. But the thing is, the note is not attached to this guy. So when you move it, the note has to move with it. So I recommend using the whole call out and using the note, and of course the basically linked to parts property or material property. So hopefully the video was useful to you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you.